Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, I brought somebody with
Hello.
me.
Who is with you?
I'm here as well.
That's great. Are you going to do it together?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
well,
are.
I was so excited and talking about it, and we had this amazing conversation, and I said, let's do that because this is a conversation, right?
Well, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it together, and we would encourage anybody from the audience to join in and ask your questions. Wouter, you're more than welcome to join the conversation as well. So
That's great.
we'll just get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's get into it. And I will watch closely. And if I have any questions, I will tap in again.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Talk to you in a minute, Wouter.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Hi.
thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me.
I'm taking over your talk,
No,
your-
I think I was so inspired when we were talking about different types of building, the process of smart, where we are in that. So, yeah, dive into it.
Yeah, because today's event is really about how do you make a smart building happen, right? Because I think what's so interesting is if we look 18 months before the pandemic, a few years ago, the question was, is smart needed? Is smart important? Is smart valuable?
Is it a nice to have?
Is it a nice to
Smart
have?
was this luxury product before, right? Like really fancy places
Yeah.
had smart buildings. It was this value add. It was a way to get cool employees in. And now,
It was like gimmicks and trying
Yeah.
to make things happen. And I think what's happened since the pandemic is the discussion has completely accelerated to the point where it's no longer should we do this, it's how do we do this, because everybody sees the value in it.
and it's crazy how many people agree with that now. I mean, we got the banks to say that.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
feels like
So there's preferred financing that they're talking about. There's, new builds, there's renovations. There's this huge push to renovate all buildings and make them more sustainable and more healthy and smarter.
But can we dive into that actually? Because I think there's this idea that smart needs to be a new build.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we showed, which was quite shocking, is that the smartest building award went to not a new build.
No, a completely renovated building. And they actually went to YIT Workery Plus in Finland. And the story of YIT and Workery Plus is so interesting because they refurbished the entire building for like 1.5 million euros. And the way that they did that was that they reused everything. So talk about sustainability, talk about purpose, talk about trying to do things better for the environment. And they said the majority of that cost actually was in that smart infrastructure.
Wow.
And then what's really cool about that smart infrastructure is now is it's creating completely new business models, new ways of looking at real estate value and what you can do with it. And the smart technology, that's not the value in the building, right? The value in the building is what you do with that technology and how you actually utilize its functionality.
When we talk about that also from a psychology point of view, where there's different technologies that have come around where people say, okay, that's outsourced, that's taken care of. And so we really believe, and we've had conversations where we say, if a smart building isn't monitored, if it is really just kind of plugged in and never checked in on in the state that it is, could it be worse than a dumb building?
Yeah.
Because the technology is just doing what it is, doing its function, but not being optimized, not being checked for any things that aren't working or need to be altered.
Well, even scarier than that is that people, humans are still responsible for buildings, and humans are still responsible for making them more efficient, making them more sustainable, making them healthier. And the smart is not going to change that. Smart is a tool. Smart is a way to get insight into what's going on and then take action from that. But what you see is that some people think that smart is actually the solution. And now that I have a smart building, I don't need to do anything else anymore. And that's a dangerous place to be, because the smart building is not self-contained. There's autonomous things.
There's a ton of things that are coming. It's much easier, but where we are right now is smart. We still need to be involved with it, right?
Yeah.
And there's new business models coming out of that. There are companies that are taking all of that technology and optimizing for it, or checking the bugs, or doing all this kind of thing for an amazing
Absolutely. And it can give you notifications. It can, you know, give you trends. It can show you what to do. But still, there's always human interaction, at least right now.
When we were talking last week at Building Future, or 2 weeks ago at Building Future Proof, what day is it? I have no idea. And we were talking about this idea of, now I lost my train of thought. Oh. But we were talking about, I have no idea.
Okay.
Let's keep talking.
Yeah. No, but so I think.
Oh, getting started. That's what it was. Getting started. This whole idea of just get started and how do we get there? So can we refresh on how to get started? Because that was kind of, you know, some people are thinking I do my whole building, I do one big, and then it's.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because I think what's so interesting about where we are right now with smart is you have new builds coming up, right, where they're saying, okay, we need to put all the technology infrastructure in there, and then the tenant or whoever's going to use that building, they'll use it and they'll figure it out. And what you see is in that transition from a new build to the operators or the tenant, there's actually a lot of functionality lost, in the sense that the handover or people don't know what it's capable of. So I think that's really one interesting point, is the governance and the change management, and how do you get an organization to adopt the technology? That's a huge thing that needs to be focused on. The other thing is that if you look also at refurb and you look at old build and what can be put in place there, a lot of people talk about, you know, smart building. And if smart building is such a vast topic that if you try and put everything into a building, you might get lost. Not everybody will get lost, but you might get lost in what it all is and what it's all for. So I think before you get started with any project, new, refurbished, or old build, you really have to ask yourself, what are we trying to do?
Because we're building a brain, right?
Exactly.
We're building a brain in the building to optimize it, to save costs, to be more sustainable, to be healthier, and something that's not a short-term project, that's the long-term project, right? So beginning with the end in mind, or if it's not a new build, one of the things that we were talking about before was get started small. Get started with one project. Get your stakeholders excited about it. Show savings. Show people more encouraged by the feedback of these devices, and showing that it is healthier, or safer, more sustainable, or better to use. So just doing that. Yeah. So that was one of the things I loved about this idea of refurbs or existing buildings. Yeah. The living lab, because one of our other buildings that got certified and got an award has a really cool living lab where they test all the technologies before they put them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Art Invest with Hammer Brooklyn in Germany, they're doing a ton of work to incubate and look at what is the latest technology out there, and how can we, they have a lab that they kind of test how each of the technologies works. And I think that there's some validity to that, you know, test technologies, try them out, learn from other people who use the technology, what works well, what doesn't work well. Also try and find a way to make informed decisions about the technology landscape, so that it's not necessarily one vendor who's taking you down their journey, because they have a lot of amazing technology and they have amazing applications for that technology, but how it applies to your business may be a little bit different.
And I think technology companies are really hoping for that too. They want to fit into your business model. They want to do this long-term process, be part of an integral brain, and kind of do something that's really, they want to show what they can do, I think. And
I think one of the observations we've seen with smart building certification that I think we would love to have you all part of that discussion and working with us on it, is that if you look at the last 3 years of smart, right, we put smart building into existing buildings or new buildings, but we apply it to old business models.
Okay.
You know, we sell buildings per square meter, we rent buildings per square meter, location, you know, the old model. And of course you can pull more efficiency out of the building, you can make it more sustainable, you can drive more value out of your amenities, because you're measuring things, and whatever you measure, you can improve. But what we're seeing now is that the companies that have more experience with smart, who have been using these technologies for a longer period of time, they're actually completely reinventing business models, and they're doing things completely different, and they're actually driving massive value, way more than traditional models, from this new way of working. And I think that with COVID and coming back to the office and looking at real estate differently now, I think this is going to be game changing. And again, the technology is not the expensive part. The technology, you know, it probably needs to be replaced every 5, 10 years. It's the how you use it.
Or that modularity where you don't have to replace the whole system, but you can click out, click in, these kind of things. This future-proof idea, which is so key
definitely a thing you need to think about when you're building your smart building, is that modularity and the APIs, and you know that when you update something, it doesn't break everything else, because you do want that integration. You do want technologies to speak to each other and to learn from each other. So no, it's an amazing topic.
But okay, so we also have something else we should talk about, which is version 3 of the smart building certification. Yeah,
so you know, from a smart building certification, we've really been working hard to think about how can a certification add the most value for this process. You know, and we can put stamps on buildings and say, okay, this is the smartest building in the world, or this is a platinum or a gold. And I think there's value to that as well, because I think it helps in the rental process, it helps in the purchase process, helps in the financing process. So I think that there is value in that a lot of value in that certification, and we don't discount that at all. But what we've done is we've built our certification much more modular, so that we can actually apply it to different contexts. I think that's really important. Not every building, not every business is the same. They're actually very different from each other. And how you design your smart building should be in line with the need of your business and your building.
Well, because everybody loves a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
They want to know how they're doing compared to people in their
similar to
sphere.
them, or applying smart in the same way as them.
Yeah.
You, like, for instance, a co-working space that is selling desk time is different than a Coca-Cola in a massive building who's the only tenant, and you can come in and out whenever you want. So those two applications are completely different. And so we need to look at those very differently. So we've done that. We've built a benchmark that looks at the vertical for what the vertical is. And then we've made it modular, so we can very easily drill down into the different aspects of smart and really look at things on a case-by-case basis, on a lower level of detail basis. So I think that starts to get really exciting.
And what is the advantage of that when you're talking about looking at comparing things to things that actually exist, comparing things to in the same realm? What is that troubleshoot in the whole certification area?
Well, what I really like about it, and what I'm proud about, is that, you know, we have a couple main modules that we focus on. We focus on building usage. So how is your asset being used? Always important to know which room is being used, why it's being used, and if it's not being used, hey, maybe we should change it. Maybe we should put some more plants in here, or maybe we should put some art in here to make it more appealing for people to actually use it. There's a reason they're not using it, and the smart building allows you to see that data, which is amazing. So we look at really building usage, how the asset's being used. And then we look at building performance, right? Like, so how are you controlling the performance of the building, your energy consumption, your water consumption, you know, your amenity consumption, all of these aspects that are driving the performance of the building. We really need to look at that, because that's it's a different stakeholder, it's a different view.
Yeah.
We look at building environment, which is health, which is all about the climate. It's all about how do you make a healthy indoor climate. And then I'll just go quickly. The safety and security is our fourth module, and user collaboration and behavior is our fifth module. And the user behavior and collaboration is how do people find each other? How do they find what they need? And also, how do they interact with the building, which technology allows us to do that now.
And that'll only grow in the future, it seems like. So what happens if I have a building that has amazing environment? Because I'm an environment nerd, right? If you've
read your book,
read my book, looked into my research, I love, you know, stimulating the healthy environment of a building. but what if I have not so great performance sustainability, or not as great, collaboration? What happens then?
Yeah, so our certification is, our mission is to make buildings better.
Yeah.
And it's to help the education process, help people understand smart buildings, what they're capable of, make them healthier, happier, more productive, more sustainable. So we need to take the case studies of the things that are going well, and we need to benchmark on those things that are going well as well. So if you are a building that is thriving in building performance and building environment, then you get to see a benchmark on those levels where you are a platinum in environment and performance. But then we're also going to make you aware of kind of some of the opportunity areas of things you could think about. And hopefully, because technology is so cross the spectrum now, we can actually use the infrastructure that's already there, and then it becomes quite low-hanging fruit to really just adopt new techniques and new ways and different process. So then all of a sudden you see it as a transformational tool to actually pull more out of your building. And that's really exciting.
I love that, because I think if I received that feedback and I had that experience, I could then give my marketing team, my PR team, the good news about the healthy environment. I got a platinum in healthy environment. And in that time, work on the other areas and work on improving other aspects or having better integrative design. So that, like you said, the technologies work together. I think that's really, really amazing. I also love this idea of benchmarking against a real building.
Yeah.
Because somebody says, well, not somebody, everybody, who's the best, but what's a smart building? What is a perfectly smart building? It's nice to just benchmark against, another building or the average buildings, seeing, what is the difference there, and not, I feel like there is some questioning sometimes where people say, well, who designed this? How did this idea, the ceiling come across, right?
And I love the buildings that come to us and their goal is to break our benchmark. They're like, we're going to throw it over because I think we're smarter than the last building you certified. And I love that discussion.
And I feel like that's going to happen quite a bit.
Yeah.
I honestly think we're going to have the end of 2021 and the end of and all of 2022, I think we're going to have a bunch of breaks.
Yeah, and then I think it's
tons of really smart buildings coming in.
Yeah, and it's getting smarter and smarter. So we need to we have a benchmark system so that we can adapt with the times and we can learn from what's going on in the market. We can apply it to the certification. We can actually circle back to the buildings that from the past and share with them the latest that's going on. I think those are really important aspects to this entire movement. If we just do a sort of stamp of a moment in time, I think we can actually have more impact by supporting a more continuous discussion.
Yeah.
Smart.
And what's coming out of this? Because we're seeing higher sales of buildings. We're seeing faster rentals of smart buildings that we're working with. We're seeing rentals,
higher values for rentals.
Rentals next to rentals that are full up next to a building that's empty, that are that real estate wise are completely the same.
Yeah. It's about that, and especially now with coming out of COVID, I know there's a lot of discussion about what's the future of the office, and of course the certification.
And we're at the office today.
The certification is not only for the office. I mean, we also are doing hotels and restaurants, and we are open to all verticals. So we definitely think we can add value in all of those different areas. But if we talk about the office specifically, there's this whole discussion of, okay, are we going full remote? Are we going full back to the office? Is it a hybrid aspect? And I have my feelings knowing corporate world and some of the culture that happens there, that I think it'll probably be a little bit less drastic than we think it will be.
Well, that seems to be what humans do. We find the boundaries and then we kind of settle in the middle
somewhere. But I think what's really interesting is the employers of choice, the companies that are going to win are going to adopt this hybrid way of working where people have choice, people have freedom, And then the office space really becomes a place of collaboration and fun and connecting with your colleagues and connecting with the mission and the vision and all of the things that are going on.
Well, Case from Edge Technologies, he actually called it a long time ago, right? We had an event and he said, I don't believe we're not going to have offices anymore. I think we need to make offices that pull people, not push people in, but pull people in. An office that people want to come to for the tools that are there, for the environment that's there, the colleagues, the social aspect, the kind of tribal feeling of all being part of a team. And having buildings that people are excited to go to. Maybe they don't go to them 9 to 5, 5 days a week, but when they go, it's because they want to.
It's an experience. It's an experience. You know, we did a project in the US called The Immediate Frontier, where we were looking at research of what does the office space of the future look like there. And in the US, they were talking about integrating kind of everything about your life into the space.
Yeah.
You know, your dry cleaning is in the building, your daycare is in the building, your healthcare is in the building, all of these things. And then the pandemic hit, so we have to see how the dust settles. But I think there's validity to that it becomes more of an experience center.
Well, and it's that 15-minute city too, right?
Yeah.
We're getting back into this kind of town mentality where we live in a smaller radius, maybe.
So I guess
although I need a vacation.
Yeah, I think we all do. But I think that the point of the discussion is that if you look at the most innovative space that is all about the experience generation, and you have the old school corporate that just expects you to be behind your desk, the application of smart is completely different for those two cases, and then there's everything in between. Yeah. So it's important to understand your values, how your value activities are driving your smart, and how are you going to use the asset to drive results.
Because smart
and then
really
your stakeholder
covers,
view is different.
Because the thing is, smart covers everything about a business, right? You're talking about your finances, getting more control out of the money you're spending on the building. You're talking about your people, both pulling your good people in and keeping people happy and feeling safe and in a good environment, and your culture there. Yeah. You're talking about sustainability. There's a lot of goals coming up for companies, and having technologies that supports your sustainability is huge. I mean, this is really
And then you have different stakeholders, right? You have the owner of the building, you have the investor in the building, you have the tenant of the building, you have the property manager of the building, and each one of them needs to pull out of smart what they need. So when you go to build your smart building, bring them all around the table and understand from them, what are they trying to achieve? Make sure that those goals are aligned. It's really hard to make things happen when goals are not aligned. Make sure those goals are aligned, and then work backwards to understand how you're going to make it happen. Yeah. And then the business case of how you're going to drive value from it, that's critical, more critical than ever.
Well, and that's a big goal of ours, right? Because, we want to help buildings get better, but we also want buildings that are doing great to keep having that encouragement from the financial market, from the business model, where people say, of course, we're going to do that. So this is also really important to us, that we help make those business cases, we help tell those business cases and get them promoted once there is such a big success story like what we're seeing with some of our buildings. And I think that will really put quite a bit of momentum behind what we're all trying to do here, which is amazing.
Make better buildings, And, I would encourage anybody to just get in touch with us. We have a lot of things that we're working on and a lot of ways that we can support. So please get in touch. We're working on finalizing our first cohort of assessors. These are 10 people that are just phenomenal in their own right. Yep. They're all across the world. They're all willing to help you all as well.
We have our version 3 coming out, where you'll be able to benchmark yourself against the smartest building.
We're already doing it.
Yeah, sorry. So it's already out with those buildings, but if you want to do version 3, you can benchmark yourself against the smartest building or break.
But you are right. There's a second half to our solution 3, which is really working with our partners. We have partners from all kinds of technology, consultancy,
We have an amazing
academia. It's emerging really nicely where we're going to be able to help you kind of choose and pick the right technologies for you. And we do that together with the ecosystem. It's not a, use this one because this one is the one that we think you should use. No, it's
about letting everybody
to
in
be
the
a
community and
Exactly.
de-siloing the industry. So we have amazing partners. We have amazing tools that we're using. We're ready for the next person to break the benchmark. And we're just really seeing such an amazing transformation of the industry, I think.
And we would love to have you part of the team and the ecosystem. I want to open it up. I see that we only have a few minutes left. I think it would be good to let the audience ask any questions they might have. And let's see if there is any. If you have any questions, please just go ahead and add them.
Hi, Wouter.
I always know a few questions. How are we going to do this in existing buildings? Because new buildings are probably easy. Well, that's already difficult, but how are we going to do this in existing buildings? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think so I've been asking all of our partners and all the tech providers that we talk to, like, is your solution only there for new build and refurbishment, or can you help existing build? And some say, no, we're really for the refurbishment and for the new build because it's a whole infrastructure piece that needs to be put in there. But there are a lot of solutions for existing build. And then the question is about appetite. It's about budget, it's about appetite, it's about understanding the applications and how to use the smart aspects.
So there's a few speeds.
Yeah,
it's kind of, do you want to do the whole thing at once? Do you want to start in one area and get the stakeholders kind of behind you and tell your own, make your business case?
You can start small and you can add a couple of little things to your business model and your process. For us, within the certification as well, we talk about not only the technology, but how is that technology embedded in the business process, embedded in governance, so that you can actually manage it. And the biggest challenge with an existing build is that people don't realize that it's not just a gimmick you put on the wall and everything's done. It's a process transformation. It's an organizational transformation. And that is just as important as the technology. So if you're going to do an existing build, that's a realization you have to take on board. And then how far and how wide and how big do you want to go? That's up to your appetite and the applications you see of it.
Hey, when is the next smart building event?
We have one on the
16th next week?
Yeah. No, not next week. The week after.
The week after.
We have a master class.
16th of June.
Where we're talking about sustainability. And we're actually doing that with two companies, Spectral and NFG, who are both good for existing buildings. So that's great. So if you're an existing building and wondering how to do it, those are two really good sparring partners. And we're going to be talking about how do you manage sustainability and make sure that we're making things better. And then what you see is what's amazing is that you put a sustainability solution in your building and you can actually pull off way more value from it, right? Because if, like, NFG is a perfect example, they put in all kinds of sensors and things and integration to manage energy consumption. But then what you get out of it is you get occupancy technology, you get, security technology, you get all these other insights that you didn't know existed from it. And that's where the value and the business model can be kind of adjusted to get more out of it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much, both Elizabeth and Nicholas. And we speak to you on the 16th of June during the masterclass.
Yeah, and I would say anybody who is interested in getting in touch with us, go to smartbuildingcertification.com. You can register there to become an assessor, a partner. You can register a project, and what you'll get from us is a proposal for that project, and then we can just have a discussion. And nothing is binding. Let's just have a discussion and try and make some buildings better. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Just do it.
Just do it.
Exactly. All right. Thanks,
Have a nice day, Wouter.
Bye.
You too. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.